Myra had grown up hearing stories about the dangers of deep space. Her mother used to warn her about traveling too far from safe zones, where human colonies were spread thin among the stars. She never thought she would be the one caught in those dangers. She never thought her simple life would lead to something so terrifying. It began when her transport ship was ambushed. She was traveling with a small group of workers, moving supplies between colonies. The ship was not built for battle, and when the warning sirens blared, fear spread faster than fire. Through the small windows, Myra saw the dark shapes of alien ships cutting through the void. They were not pirates. They belonged to a hostile faction that had fought humans many times before. These aliens valued strength above all, and they had no mercy for the weak. The crew tried to resist, but within minutes, their ship was boarded. Myra was dragged from her seat by tall figures covered in armor that shimmered with strange patterns. Their language was rough and sharp, but she understood their intent without words. She was chosen. She was marked. The aliens bound her hands and pushed her through long corridors filled with smoke and the cries of other captives. She could not see her friends anymore. One by one, people were taken in different directions, and Myra realized she might never see them again. The fear in her chest was heavy, but she did not cry. Something inside told her that tears would only make her weaker in the eyes of her captors. After hours of travel, she found herself on a world unlike any she had seen before. The air was hot and dry, the sky filled with a red glow as if the planet itself was on fire. Towers of black stone rose from the ground, built into strange shapes that looked more like claws than buildings. Myra was taken into the largest of these towers. Inside, she heard whispers among the aliens. Their voices carried a word over and over again. A name. She could not fully understand their speech, but the way they looked at her told her everything she needed to know. She was to be given to something they feared and respected. She was to be offered to the Red Dragon. Myra had heard that name before, though only in hushed stories told by travelers who had ventured too close to alien borders. The Red Dragon was no ordinary beast. It was said to be older than many civilizations, a living weapon of fire and scale. No one survived once thrown into its presence. The aliens treated it as both a curse and a treasure, keeping it locked deep within their planet to use as punishment or sacrifice. Her heart pounded as she was dragged toward a massive gate built into the side of the Black Tower. The doors were carved with images of fire and wings. The ground trembled beneath her feet as if the creature inside already sensed her approach. She wanted to fight, but her body was too small against the armored guards who pushed her forward. She wanted to scream, but her throat was too dry to form words. The gates opened with a sound like thunder. Heat poured out, almost choking her. She stumbled forward as the guards released her chains and shoved her into the darkness beyond. The doors closed behind her, leaving her alone. The cavern was enormous. The walls glowed faintly with cracks of molten rock, lighting the space with a red and golden glow. The air was heavy, each breath burning in her lungs. And then she saw it. The red dragon lay at the far end of the cavern, coiled like a mountain come alive. Its scales shone like burning metal, reflecting the light of the molten rock. Its wings were folded close to its body, but even folded, they stretched taller than the towers outside. Its head rested on the ground, massive eyes glowing like suns. For a long moment, Myra froze. The stories had not lied. The red dragon was beyond imagination. It was not simply an animal. It carried an aura of power and thought, as if it was more than flesh and bone. She expected it to rise and burn her to ash at once. Her knees weakened. She could hardly stand under its gaze. But the dragon did not move. It only watched her. Its eyes followed her steps, unblinking, calm but sharp. Myra's breath came fast, but she took one shaky step forward. Then another. The heat grew stronger, yet the silence was even heavier. She whispered to herself, though no one could hear her, "This is the end." Yet in her heart, a small spark of wonder grew. She was alive. The dragon had not attacked. And though she could not explain why, she felt as if it was waiting for something. The silence inside the cavern pressed on Myra like a heavy weight. She could hear her own heartbeat, fast and unsteady, echoing in her chest. The heat from the walls made sweat gather on her forehead, but she did not dare wipe it away. Her eyes stayed fixed on the red dragon, waiting for it to strike. The dragon lifted its head slightly, and the movement alone was enough to make the ground tremble. Its golden eyes narrowed, studying her. Myra held her breath. She had never felt so small. In front of her stood a creature that looked as if it could end her life with a single breath of fire. Yet no flame came. Instead, the dragon exhaled slowly. A wave of hot air swept over her, almost knocking her off her feet. The sound was not like a roar but more like a sigh, deep and long, filled with something that surprised her. It was not hunger. It was not even anger. It felt like weariness, as if the dragon had lived too long and carried a weight too heavy for even its massive wings. Myra steadied herself against the hot stone floor. She whispered under her breath, not sure if the dragon could hear her. "Why are you not attacking me?" The dragon tilted its head, a motion strangely thoughtful, almost human in its meaning. Its eyes glowed brighter, then dimmed again, as if it were testing her courage. Myra felt a strange pull inside her chest. She had been thrown into this prison to die, yet the dragon was sparing her. She did not know why. The cavern itself was like another world. Streams of molten rock flowed through cracks in the stone, lighting the air with a red glow. Sharp stalactites hung from the ceiling, dripping heat. Far above, Myra thought she saw a faint opening, though it was too high to ever reach. The ground shook now and then, reminding her that this place was alive with the power of fire. Myra decided to move slowly. She took careful steps toward the edge of the cavern, never turning her back on the dragon. She found a flat rock and sat down, her legs weak from fear and exhaustion. The dragon watched her but did not move closer. Hours passed. Time felt strange inside the cavern, with no sun or stars to measure its passing. Myra's throat was dry, her stomach empty. She wondered if this was the plan all along, to let her suffer until she begged for death. But then she noticed something strange. Near the wall, there was a small pool of clear water, untouched by the molten streams. It glowed faintly in the red light. Myra crawled toward it, dipped her hands, and drank. The water was cool and fresh, unlike anything she expected in such a burning place. When she turned back, she found the dragon still watching her. She felt a shiver, not of fear but of wonder. Could it be that the dragon had allowed this pool to exist? Could it be that this creature, feared across the stars, was not only a beast of fire but also a guardian of balance? Night must have fallen outside, though Myra could not see it. She lay down near the stone wall, trying to sleep, though every sound made her eyes snap open. The dragon's breathing filled the cavern, steady and deep. Oddly, it comforted her. She felt less alone knowing that something alive, even something so deadly, was near her. The next morning, if it could be called morning, Myra awoke to the sound of movement. The dragon had stretched its wings, sending a rush of heat and wind across the cavern. Myra shielded her face, afraid, but again no attack came. Instead, the dragon folded its wings and lowered its head close to her. Its golden eyes were so near that she could see the reflection of her own face within them. Her hands trembled, but she did not run. "You understand me, don't you?" she whispered. Her voice was soft, but it did not shake this time. The dragon blinked slowly. It was a simple action, but Myra felt it was an answer. The truth hit her hard. This creature was not mindless. It was intelligent. Perhaps more intelligent than her captors who had thrown her here. Myra pressed her hand to her chest. She thought of her mother, of her friends who had been taken away, of the colony that might never know what happened to her. A wave of determination rose inside her. She had been thrown here to be nothing more than a sacrifice, but she was still alive. She would not give up. She stood tall, even though her legs felt weak, and spoke louder this time. "If you can hear me, if you can understand me, I am not your enemy. I am not here to harm you." The dragon's great chest rumbled with a sound that shook the ground. It was not a roar. It was something softer, something Myra could not yet name. She thought of it as a reply, not in words but in meaning. For the first time, she felt a spark of hope. She was not simply trapped with a monster. She was standing before a creature that might choose something different. And in that moment, Myra realized the prison she had been thrown into was not only hers. The dragon was a prisoner too. Myra woke with a start, her body stiff from sleeping on hard stone. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the heat pressed down on her, and the low sound of steady breathing reminded her she was not alone. The red dragon lay across the cavern, its massive body still, but its golden eyes were open and fixed on her. Her heart raced. Every time she saw those eyes, she expected fire, yet none came. She sat up slowly, trying not to make sudden movements. The dragon tilted its head slightly, as though curious. Myra drew in a shaky breath and whispered, "You are not going to kill me, are you?" The dragon's gaze did not waver. It blinked once, slowly, the motion heavy with meaning. Myra's fear did not vanish, but she felt something else stirring within her. The creature's silence was not empty. It was full of thought, full of watching, full of questions. She remembered how the guards had thrown her here with laughter, expecting her to scream and beg as the dragon devoured her. Yet hours had passed, and she was alive. More than that, she felt that the dragon had allowed her to remain alive. Why? That question filled her mind like a drum beat. Myra rose to her feet. Her legs shook, but she forced herself to walk closer. Each step was slow, cautious, but she no longer wanted to cower in the corner. The dragon's eyes followed her movement. She stopped a few paces away, close enough to feel the heat radiating from its scales. It was like standing near the heart of a forge. She lifted her hand but stopped, frozen by doubt. Touching such a beast seemed unthinkable. One spark of flame and she would be gone. Yet something in her heart pushed her forward. She placed her palm against the nearest scale, cool compared to the burning air around her. The dragon did not pull away. Myra's eyes widened. The scale felt smooth and solid, yet alive with a faint pulse beneath it, like the slow beat of a drum. The dragon gave a low sound, deep and rumbling, not fierce but steady. It was not anger. It was something else. "You are alive like me," she whispered. "Not just a beast. Not just a weapon." For a moment, she forgot her fear. She spoke as if to a friend. They threw me here to die, but maybe you are like me. Maybe you are trapped too. The dragon closed its eyes halfway, lowering its head closer to her. Myra felt the air shift as its breath swept over her, hot but not burning. She understood then, without words, that it was listening. Days passed in the cavern. Myra learned to drink from the small pool near the wall. She grew weaker from hunger, but the dragon never harmed her. At night, she would sit near its side, speaking softly about her world, her mother, her colony, even the little things she remembered from home. She did not know if the dragon understood every word, but its steady gaze made her believe it did. One evening, she sang. It was a simple song her mother had taught her, a lullaby that spoke of stars guiding travelers home. Her voice echoed through the cavern, thin and trembling, but the dragon's eyes softened as if the sound touched something within it. The rumbling in its chest grew deeper, almost like it was answering her melody. Myra's fear slowly gave way to wonder. The dragon was not her executioner. It was her companion in this prison. She began to think that perhaps the two of them were bound by fate, both victims of the same cruel captors. She asked questions aloud, even though the dragon gave no spoken replies. Do you remember your sky? Did you ever fly free before they locked you here? Do you hate them like I do? Every time she spoke, the dragon shifted slightly, its wings or tail stirring the air. She started to read meaning in those movements, as if they were its own kind of language. The more she observed, the more she felt she was right. Myra's courage grew. One night, she rested her back against the dragon's side, letting the warmth of its body keep away the cold of the stone floor. The dragon did not move to shake her off. Instead, it lowered its great head beside her, its eyes closing at last. She whispered into the silence, "You are not my enemy." As she closed her eyes, she felt a strange peace she had not known since her capture. For the first time since being thrown into this place, she did not feel alone. She felt protected. And deep inside her heart, she began to believe something no one else would ever imagine. The red dragon, the most feared creature in the galaxy, had chosen to accept her. Myra awoke to the sound of a low rumble that shook the cavern floor. At first she thought the dragon was growling, but when she opened her eyes, she saw it stretching its massive wings. The sight filled her with awe. The wings glowed faintly in the red light, their edges sharp and strong, like blades of living fire. The dragon turned its head toward her. For a moment, they simply stared at one another. Myra felt no fear now. She felt something stronger. Trust. She stood, walked closer, and placed her hand against the warm scales. The dragon did not move away. Instead, it lowered its head until its eyes were level with hers. You do understand me, she whispered, her voice steady. You have been waiting, haven't you? Waiting for someone to see you not as a monster but as, more. The dragon's golden eyes shone brighter, and its chest rumbled again, a sound that filled the cavern. Myra felt it not only through her ears but through her whole body. It was not a roar of anger. It was a sound of agreement. Her heart beat faster. She dared to smile, something she thought she would never do in this place. Slowly, she stepped closer and rested her forehead against the dragon's head. The heat was strong, but it did not burn. It felt alive, like the warmth of a sun that did not wish to harm. From that moment, a bond was formed. Myra could not explain it with words, but she knew it was real. She felt the dragon's loneliness, its years of silence, its pain of being locked away and forced to act as a weapon. And in return, She felt it sense her own pain, the fear of capture, the grief of losing her people, the longing for freedom. That night, she did not sit at a distance. She leaned against the dragon's side, resting in the steady warmth of its body. Sleep came easier, and for the first time since her capture, her dreams were not filled with fear. Days passed. Myra grew weaker from hunger, but the dragon began to help her in small ways. Once, when she wandered near the molten streams, it shifted its massive claws and broke open a hidden crack in the stone. Out spilled a cluster of glowing fruit, strange and red, but safe to eat. Myra ate carefully, grateful, and looked at the dragon with wonder. "You are taking care of me," she said. The dragon's eyes glowed softly in the dim light. She felt as if it was telling her, "You are not alone." Myra's courage grew stronger each day. She spoke freely now, telling the dragon about her world. She described the clear blue skies, the green forests, the oceans that stretched further than eyes could see. She spoke of her mother's voice, of laughter in the colony, of the feeling of wind against her face when she ran as a child. The dragon listened. It never spoke, but its slow movements, its tilting head, its steady breathing, all told her it was hearing every word. Myra began to see small signs of change. The dragon no longer kept its wings folded tight. It stretched them more often, as if remembering what it was like to fly. It lifted its head higher, no longer drooping with the weight of silence. One evening, Myra dared to do what no human had ever done. She climbed onto its back. At first, she thought it might throw her off, but the dragon stayed still. Its scales felt like solid stone under her hands, yet she could feel life pulsing beneath. Sitting there, high above the ground, she felt powerful and free. She laughed softly, her voice echoing through the cavern. "If only they could see me now. They threw me here to die, but I am still alive. And I am with you." The dragon lifted its head, letting out a long, low sound that filled the air. It was not sorrow this time. It was strength. Myra understood it as a promise. A promise that as long as she was with it, she would not be harmed. But their peace did not last. On the seventh day, the great gates of the cavern groaned open once more. Light spilled in, and Myra saw the shadow of her captors standing at the entrance. They shouted in their harsh language, their weapons raised. Myra froze. They had come to watch her die. The dragon turned its head, eyes glowing like molten gold. Myra felt its chest rumble, but this time the sound was not soft. It was sharp, rising, filled with fire. The air grew hotter, and sparks flickered from between its teeth. Myra placed her hand against its scales, her voice calm but firm. "Do not fear them. I am with you. And you are with me." The dragon shifted, pulling its wings wide until they filled the cavern like two burning walls. The guards hesitated, their steps slowing. For the first time, they saw something they had never expected. The red dragon was not attacking the human. It was protecting her. Myra stood tall beside the beast, her fear replaced by strength. She looked at the aliens, and for the first time since her capture, she felt no weakness. She felt power. The bond between girl and dragon had been sealed. And now, both of them were ready to fight back. The gates of the cavern stood open. Harsh light from outside spilled across the molten floor, and the armored guards stepped forward with weapons raised. Their sharp voices echoed as they shouted commands, expecting the red dragon to obey. They had come to watch Myra's end, confident the beast would do what it always had. But this time was different. The dragon stood tall, its wings unfolding like walls of flame. Its golden eyes burned brighter than the molten cracks in the cavern walls. Myra felt the ground tremble beneath her feet as the beast let out a roar so loud that the guards froze where they stood. It was a roar of defiance, not obedience. Myra's heart pounded. She stood close to the dragon's side, her hand pressed firmly against its scales. Her fear had not vanished, but it no longer controlled her. She had something stronger now. She had trust. The guards shouted louder, their voices sharp with anger. They fired glowing projectiles that streaked through the air. Myra braced for pain, but the dragon swung its massive wing in front of her, the scales deflecting the blasts like stones against steel. Sparks burst across the cavern walls, but Myra was untouched. The dragon's chest swelled, and in the next instant, it unleashed its fire. A river of flame shot across the cavern, painting the walls with burning light. The guards screamed and scattered, some dropping their weapons as they tried to flee. The heat was so strong that Myra shielded her face with her arm, yet she felt no harm. The dragon's fire did not touch her. It only destroyed those who wished her dead. More guards rushed in, dozens of them, their armor gleaming under the firelight. They carried long spears crackling with energy. Myra could see their hesitation, the fear in the way they slowed when they looked at her. None of them understood why she was still alive. None of them understood why the dragon stood at her side. Myra shouted with all the strength in her voice, "He will not harm me. I am not your sacrifice." Her words echoed in the cavern, though she knew the guards might not understand her language. But they understood her stance. She stood tall beside the dragon, unburned, unafraid. The dragon swept forward, claws striking the ground with thunder. The cavern shook as pieces of stone fell from above. Its tail lashed out, smashing the guards aside like toys. Myra climbed onto its back, her hands gripping the solid scales. The dragon lifted its head, releasing another roar, a sound that carried power and freedom. Together, they pushed the attackers back. The guards tried to regroup, forming lines with their glowing spears, but the dragon charged, its wings snapping forward with such force that the wind knocked them off their feet. Fire followed, bright as a second sun, melting the stone underfoot. Myra held on tightly, her hair whipped by the hot wind. She had never felt such power, and yet she was not afraid. She felt safe, as if the dragon's strength was now her own. She realized in that moment that they were not only allies but something more. They were partners, bonded by choice. When the last of the guards fell or fled, silence returned to the cavern. Smoke curled through the air, and the heavy gates were cracked and broken. The dragon lowered its head, turning its glowing eyes toward Myra. She slid down from its back, landing gently on the scorched stone. She looked at the fallen weapons, at the path now clear beyond the gates. Freedom lay ahead, but her heart knew the truth. The dragon was still trapped. As long as the aliens controlled this world, it would always be hunted, always be chained to their will. Myra reached up and placed her hand against its head once more. Her voice was soft but certain. "We cannot stay here. You are not their prisoner anymore. And I am not their prey. Together we will leave this place." The dragon's chest rumbled in answer, low and steady. It spread its wings wide, their edges glowing in the firelight. The cavern shook as it stepped toward the broken gates, its massive body filling the entrance. Myra followed at its side, her small figure dwarfed by the great beast, yet she felt taller than ever before. Each step carried her closer to freedom, closer to the sky she longed for. She knew the aliens would not give up easily. They would send more soldiers, more ships. But she also knew she was no longer alone. The trial of fire had proven one truth. The red dragon was not a mindless beast of destruction. It was a living force that had chosen her, just as she had chosen it. And now, nothing could stand between them and the stars. The broken gate stood behind them, smoke and ash drifting into the air. The cavern that had once been a prison now felt too small, too heavy with the chains of the past. Myra stood at the dragon's side, her eyes fixed on the world beyond. She could see the open sky, painted with the red glow of the alien sun. The dragon spread its wings, each movement strong enough to stir waves of heat across the ground. Myra's heart pounded as she climbed onto its back. Her hands gripped the scales, her legs pressed firmly against the wide ridges. She had never ridden anything like this, never dreamed of flying on such a creature. Yet it felt natural, as if she had always belonged here. The dragon bent low, its body coiling like a spring, then leapt forward. With a single powerful beat of its wings, it launched into the sky. The ground shook from the force, molten dust rising in clouds behind them. Myra gasped as the cavern shrank below her, the black towers of the alien city stretching out across the horizon. The air rushed past her face, hot and fierce, but she did not close her eyes. She wanted to see everything. The world below was harsh, covered in jagged cliffs and rivers of fire. The city stood like a nest of dark stone, its towers twisted like claws reaching toward the heavens. And above it all stretched the endless sky, open and waiting. Myra laughed, the sound torn away by the wind. She felt free for the first time since her capture. The dragon roared, a sound that rolled across the land like thunder. Together, they soared higher, climbing above the towers. The aliens below shouted and pointed, their weapons flashing, but their shots fell short. No weapon could reach the speed and height of the dragon's flight. Still, Myra knew they would not stop. Already, she saw ships lifting from the city, black and sharp, their engines glowing as they chased into the sky. The dragon twisted its body, wings cutting through the air as it dodged the first blasts of energy. Myra held on tightly, her eyes wide with both fear and excitement. The chase began. The alien ships formed lines, firing bursts of light that streaked toward them. The dragon rolled and dived, moving with a grace Myra never imagined possible for such a massive creature. Each beat of its wings carried them higher, weaving through the sky like fire itself. The blasts missed again and again, some striking the cliffs below, sending showers of sparks into the air. Myra shouted encouragement, her voice lost in the wind but heard by the one who mattered. "You can do this. I am with you." The dragon responded with a roar that shook the air. Its chest swelled, and it unleashed a torrent of flame. The fire stretched across the sky, engulfing the nearest ship. The craft spun out of control, its metal frame melting as it fell back to the ground. The others wavered, pulling back, uncertain if they could face such power. But more ships rose from the city, faster and larger, their weapons glowing brighter. Myra knew they would not stop until both she and the dragon were destroyed. She leaned low against its back, whispering into the heat of its scales. "We must leave this world. The stars are our only path." The dragon beat its wings harder, rising higher and higher. The sky darkened as they climbed, the red glow of the sun fading into the black of space. Myra felt the air thin, her breath tight, but the dragon's body glowed with energy, shielding her from the cold. She clung to its scales, trusting it completely. Below, the alien world shrank, its towers no larger than shadows, its rivers of fire glowing faintly like threads of light. The pursuing ships followed, their engines burning bright in the void. Myra looked over her shoulder, her jaw set. They would not surrender. But neither would she. The dragon twisted sharply, its wings cutting through the emptiness with force. It dived suddenly, then rose again, leaving the ship struggling to match its speed. Fire erupted once more, catching two more ships in its path. Explosions lit the darkness, scattering debris across the stars. The rest of the ships hesitated, keeping their distance. Myra held her breath as silence returned. The stars stretched endlessly around them, bright and cold. She had never seen them like this, not from a window, not from the ground, but from the open void itself. She felt small, yet she also felt infinite, part of something greater. The dragon slowed, its massive wings beating steady as it carried her beyond the reach of the enemy. Myra pressed her cheek against its scales, tears stinging her eyes. "We made it. We are free." The dragon rumbled deep in its chest, a sound that carried both pride and relief. Myra smiled, her fear forgotten. The bond between them was unbreakable now. She was no longer a prisoner, and the dragon was no longer a chained beast. Together, they had escaped the fire and the stone. Together, they had claimed the stars. The stars stretched endlessly around Myra and the red dragon, a sea of light and darkness that promised freedom and adventure. After escaping the alien world, there was no turning back. Myra leaned against the dragon's warm scales, feeling the pulse of life beneath her fingers. She smiled, knowing they had survived the impossible together. The galaxy was vast, and their journey had only begun. Myra had learned that fear alone could not define a human. She had faced death, fire, and despair, yet here she was, riding on the back of the most feared creature in the universe. And the dragon had chosen her. That choice had changed everything. As they traveled through the stars, Myra began to understand her companion more deeply. The dragon was not just a weapon, it was a being of thought and memory. Its eyes followed the lights of distant planets with curiosity. Its body shifted with intelligence, as if it could feel the gravity and energy of every star. Myra realized that the dragon had been more prisoner than predator, chained by fear and expectation until she had arrived. One day, as they passed a cluster of small planets, Myra spoke softly. "We will not hide anymore. They will remember us. They will know that no one can control you, no one can control me." The dragon rumbled in agreement, its voice low and steady, vibrating through her body. It was more than sound. It was a promise. Word of the girl and the dragon spread faster than Myra could imagine. Reports came from space travelers, from colonies, from the edges of human and alien territories. A human had tamed the deadliest alien creature, a red dragon whose fire could level armies. People whispered in fear and awe. Myra listened with quiet pride. She did not seek fame. She sought freedom, but the legend followed anyway. Some tried to hunt them. Pirates, alien mercenaries, and hostile factions sent ships to capture or destroy the dragon. Each attempt ended in failure. Myra and the dragon moved as one. The dragon's fire, strength, and intelligence, combined with Myra's courage and quick thinking, made them unstoppable. They flew through asteroid fields, dodged laser storms, and vanished into nebulae that hid them from the enemy. Yet Myra never forgot the bond they shared. She spoke to the dragon often, telling it stories of her childhood, her colony, and her family. She described the oceans of her home world, the tall forests, the wind that rushed across open plains. The dragon listened, tilting its head, breathing low and steady. In return, the dragon shared something too. Myra began to notice patterns in its movements, the way it shifted in space, the way it rested near planets. She could sense its feelings, its moods, its awareness of the galaxy. They became more than allies. They became partners, friends, and eventually, family. Myra learned to trust the dragon completely, and it learned to trust her. Together, they shaped their path through the stars, no longer fleeing but seeking new worlds, new experiences, and new chances to help those in need. One quiet night, they rested near a small blue planet, its oceans sparkling under distant starlight. Myra leaned on the dragon's side, watching the water below. She whispered, "We survived everything. And now, we can choose what comes next." The dragon's eyes glowed faintly, a gentle warmth that mirrored her words. The galaxy itself seemed to notice them. Travelers spoke in hushed tones about the human girl and her dragon, calling her the Dragon Rider. Some feared her. Some admired her. But all agreed that she was different, that humanity had never seen a courage like hers before. Myra realized that she had become a symbol, not because she wanted to, but because she had faced fear and refused to be broken. As days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, Myra and the Red Dragon continued their journey. They explored planets untouched by humans, civilizations that had never seen a creature like the Red Dragon. Everywhere they went, the story of their bond grew, spreading across space like starlight itself. Myra saw that fear could be transformed into respect, that enemies could become cautious observers, and that courage could inspire even the most hopeless hearts. One day, Myra looked down at the dragon, feeling its warmth beneath her hands. "We changed the world," she said softly. "Not by fighting alone, but by choosing each other. By refusing to be afraid." The dragon rumbled in answer, a deep, vibrating sound that made her smile. Together, they rose higher into the stars, moving toward new horizons, toward new worlds, and toward a future they would shape together. They were no longer hunted. They were no longer prisoners. They were legends. And the galaxy would never forget the human girl who rode the red dragon, the girl who turned fear into courage, and the dragon who chose her as its companion.